G'day and welcome from Sydney, Australia. I'm Steph Penny and this is the online launch of my new book, Surviving Childlessness, Faith and Furbabies. Now I'm going to try something really technical here and see if I can flip the camera around so you guys can see the writing the right way around. No, it doesn't look like my phone's going to do that, so never mind. But afterwards, rest assured, I will edit this video and I will flip it so you can see Surviving Childlessness the right way around. So take my word for it, that's what it says. Surviving Childlessness, Faith and Furbabies. This is my brand new book. And really, I'd love to start this book launch by singing Zippity Doo-Dah because it's so exciting to be launching this book and to be celebrating with you all, especially with my friends in the UK. Welcome and g'day from down under. Now, helping me with our video today is the lovely Emily, and she's going to say hello. There she is with her little yellow ducky. Emily's, amongst other things, making me laugh. She's going to be helping me out by responding to your lovely comments today and taking any questions you might have. There will be time for me later in today's video to answer some questions. So if questions do occur to you, please just type them in the comments as we go, and I'll try to get to them if I can in the live video. If not, please rest assured that I will answer all comments and questions after the video has finished as well. So big thanks to Emily for helping us out. And hello and welcome to you all. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Tell us who you are and where you're watching from, especially if you're watching from the UK. Welcome and very special hello to you. So let us know where you're tuning in from. We are having a competition today. So one lucky commenter who puts their comments in the comments will get their own autographed copy of Surviving Childlessness. Yay! So keep those comments rolling in. Today, if we're really lucky, we'll get an impromptu appearance from my fur baby, who is a rescue cat named Portia. She's currently circling my ankles at the moment, so we'll see if she jumps up and says hello. If you do hear any meowing, that's probably her, not Emily. So what are you going to hear about today? You're going to hear about surviving childlessness. And here she is. This is Portia, everyone. She's jumped up. Say hello. Don't be antisocial. This is Portia, and she is my lovely fur baby and comforter and friend in childlessness. So today you will hear all about my new book, Surviving Childlessness. Facebook gurus will tell you to be really subtle when you're pitching your product, but I ain't subtle. So this is going to be about my book, and it'd be awesome if you do want to buy my book. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to be talking today about why I decided to tell my story of childlessness, and you'll be hearing excerpts from the book, including a story from one of the childless people I interviewed in the UK. And as I say, there will be time near the end for questions, so be sure to pop them in the comments as you think of them. So stick around, there'll be a lucky prize winner to be announced later on. But first of all, this book, Surviving Childlessness, this is the second book in my survival series, and it follows my first book, Surviving Singledom. So if you've read my first book or you know of it, pop that in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So why write about childlessness? Why write another survival book at all? Well, it actually started with Surviving Singledom. At my book launch, a number of people came up to me and asked me to write a book about marriage. And my first reaction to that was no. Do you know how many books there are out there on marriage? We don't need my book on marriage. Honestly, there's so much out there. And then one childless friend came up to me and said, no, Steph, we want you to write a book about what it's like to be married in the church and not have children. And I thought, yeah, I can do that for sure. And if you think about it, it is a little bit hard finding resources around childlessness, and particularly if you're a Christian childless person. I mean, there's lots out there on parenting, which is great because that's a really important area, a very important ministry. But if you don't belong to the group of parents, then there's not a lot. And it is hard being childless at church sometimes. You know, you look around, there's babies crying, there's kids running around, there's parents groups, there's Sunday school, there's all sorts of great programs for little ones and for parents. But as a childless person, it can leave you feeling a little bit on the outer. And that's before we even get to Mother's and Father's Day church services, guys. So I've had the experience as a childless person of being excluded and even openly mocked in church. Yeah, it actually happened to me, guys, and it happened in church. If you want the full story on that, you'll have to buy my book because it's in there, including how I responded to that. So before I started writing this book, I actually did a bit of research and tried to find existing books on faith and childlessness. Guess how many I found? Now this is going back about 5 years, so I think there's maybe some more books out now, but I found one, guys, one book on childlessness, and it was bad. It was bad. It seemed to say, and I hope and pray I got this wrong, but it seemed to say that childlessness is caused by a lack of faith. And if you only have more faith, your childlessness will be cured, and voila, babies will start turning up. And I thought, yeah, okay, there really is a gap in this area, and I definitely need to write this book on surviving childlessness. So I had a few friends approach me asking me for the book again. So I've started doing some research and some work on the book, but I thought I don't just want this book to be about me and my story of childlessness, because my story is about health issues. It's a little bit niche, to be honest, even in the childless community. So I wanted to reach out and include other people's childlessness stories. So I put a tiny ad on Facebook and Twitter one night, just asking if anyone would be interested in sharing their story. Went to bed, didn't think much more of it. Woke up the following morning to a tsunami of responses. People seemed not just keen, but enthusiastic to share their stories. So I've included them in this book. There's 13 stories of childlessness plus my own story in here, and none of them end with rainbow babies. They're honest accounts of grief and survival, and I hope you find them helpful. Even more than that, I hope that they resonate with you, and I hope you come away from this book knowing for sure that you're not alone in your experience of childlessness. And now it's time for a sip of water, because I'm about to read an excerpt from Surviving Childlessness. If you've just tuned in, this is the online launch of Steph Penny's new book, Surviving Childlessness. I'm Steph Penny, and remember as you're watching to like and heart my video, so that will help more people to see it, and the more people who see it, the more will hear this message of solidarity and of hope, who really need that message. So the following is an excerpt from both the society chapter in my book and the church chapter as well. All right, here we go. Hopefully you guys can see me all right there. Don't know why the video cut out, guys, but we're back, and that's the main thing. So we're reading an excerpt from my new book, Surviving Childlessness, and this is an excerpt from the chapter called Society. There are tangible child-related cues all around us. Prams, pram-allocated parking spaces, car seats, baby changing rooms. These things can be painful reminders of what childless people do not have. Every pregnant woman, every child is a reminder of what is normal. Many special events in the calendar year are geared towards the nuclear family, not towards childless people. The obvious ones are Father's and Mother's Days and children's birthdays, industries unto themselves. Major holidays like Christmas and Easter are often promoted as being family friendly. Christmas carols are crowded with kids' activities like petting zoos and face painting. Just once, I would like to see face painting for adults. If they can do adult jumping castles, they can do adult face painting. Now, these efforts on behalf of children are admirable, but it can leave childless people feeling excluded and invisible. And do not even get me started on workplace options for parents. Oh, all right then. I'm reading an excerpt from Surviving Childlessness, and we are starting to talk about society, an excerpt from my society chapter of this book. And we're talking about how childless people often feel excluded and left on the outside. In the workplace, parents get flexible working options, and maternity and paternity leave are just the beginning. Parents get special privileges on account of their little ones. They can, for example, reduce from full-time to part-time hours. They can excuse themselves from after-hours duties because they need to be home with their kids. All of which, of course, is completely right and proper. I totally understand parents' needs to be available for their children. I just do not understand why others are not afforded similar flexibility to attend important things and achieve their work-life balance. As an example, a parent worker can leave early every Tuesday if they need to take their child to soccer. But I do not get that option, even if I have something really important to do every Tuesday, like play soccer myself. Only kidding. I hate soccer. If I have something genuinely important to do after work, like visiting a sick family member, taking my furbaby to the vet, or plucking my eyebrows, I am not afforded the same flexibility. Okay, so maybe collecting children from school is slightly more important than my brow line. But seriously, there are things I want to do outside of work that really matter to me. I understand parents need a lot of flexibility, but it smarts when I think of what I wanted, what I never had, that my parent colleague has. If I did not know better, I would think children get prioritised over extended family and pets. And brow lines. Sadly, many childless people have struggled to fit into the church mainstream. Even more sadly, churches have not always recognised this, but have carried on as usual, perpetuating social divides and isolation. But we still belong to the global church, the real church, the one that thrives no matter what. The real church welcomes mess and vulnerability and raw honesty, and in the real church, you and I have a place. We are valued. We have something to offer. Our opinions, our voices, our stories matter. From an eternal perspective, I am part of the real church, accepted, redeemed, welcomed, and a joint heir with Christ. So if I feel like the odd one out at my local church, it is because I am longing for my heavenly home. Nothing on this earth can compare to the eternal home that awaits me. And that floods me with relief. Our churches are temporary stops on the way to our heavenly destination. Let us hold on to that eternal desire, the longing to be with our Father in his house. And now, this is an excerpt from one of my interviewees' story. Her name is Sarah, and she is from the UK. When Sarah turned 30, 5 years into her marriage, she and her husband started trying, despite not feeling ready, money or job-wise. They tried for 3 years. At first, they were not concerned over the delay. They believed it would eventually happen. Things were okay. Until their friends started having babies. That changed the situation. They wondered why it was not happening for them. They got tested, an intrusive and difficult process, and the results were inconclusive. The doctor diagnosed them with unexplained infertility, which, unbeknownst to them, gave them a 4% chance of conceiving naturally. The doctor told them to keep trying, so they did. They believed if they gave it time and prayer and held fast to their peace, the issue would resolve. Sarah drew strength and comfort from her relationship with God during this time. Her faith grew, flourished even, as she trusted God and waited for a child. One day at a Rhythm of Hope conference, Sarah discovered she could apply for 2 rounds of IVF. She could take a milder dose of hormones and use ICSI, which is injecting a single sperm into each egg, increasing the chance of fertilization. So they applied and got the funding. But while waiting for the paperwork to come through, they discovered Sarah's husband had fast-growing cancer. This devastating news led to 6 agonizing weeks of cancer testing. Thankfully, the test came back benign. Sarah's husband had been wrongly diagnosed. Looking back, Sarah wished they had responded to their infertility with the same urgency and vigour as they did to the cancer scare. They had patiently waited in infertility for 6 years. The cancer scare left Sarah and her husband exhausted. Not the best way to start IVF, but they started the next month. The worst part was the emotional roller coaster. Waiting for good or bad news every day was horrendous. Each day, the number of embryos decreased. So, what happens next? Will IVF work? What will happen for Sarah and her husband? Stay tuned for the rest of Sarah's story coming soon. So put your thoughts in the comments, guys, if you relate to Sarah's story, or if you've experienced isolation in your church or your workplace because of childlessness. Do you feel excluded from mainstream society, like you're the odd one out, perhaps? Share your stories of childlessness in the comments, good, bad, or ugly. So who should buy this book? This book was written for 3 kinds of people. First and foremost, this book is for those who are childless. If you are childless, you're in the right place. I wrote this with you in mind. There's 13 other stories of childlessness in this book, in addition to my own. And my own story is one of being childless by forced choice, which is a new term I coined to describe someone like me with health issues who had kind of a choice about having children, but also felt backed into a corner by terrifying medical risk. That's childlessness by forced choice. It is my hope that you, if you are childless, you will find solidarity in this book, maybe with a few laughs along the way or even a couple of tears. Secondly, this book is for those who love or support a childless person. You can buy it for yourself to better understand your childless loved one, or buy this book as a gift for them, which shows how much you care. And if you've ever worried about saying the wrong thing to a childless person, never fear. There's a whole chapter in my book dedicated to you. It's called For Friends and Family, or What Not to Say, because it can be hard to know sometimes. Thirdly, this book is for the church. I have lots of ideas and suggestions throughout the book for how the church can be more aware and inclusive of its childless members, plus a few examples of how not to do it. So if you are a church leader, or you are in a church and you know there are childless people in your congregation, think about getting this book as a resource for your church. So which one are you? Put it in the comments. Are you childless yourself? Do you love or support a childless person? Pop your thoughts in the comments and let us know. Now, if you've just tuned in, this is our online launch for Steph Penny's new book, that's me, and it's called Surviving Childlessness, Faith and Furbabies. And there's a little rubber ducky there that you can see, hopefully. So if you've just tuned in, we're about to resume Sarah's story. Now, what's just happened? She and her husband have just started IVF. So let's see what happens to them next. Oh, before a little drink of water. Here we go. Sarah fell pregnant. She could not believe it. For years she had felt God say she would be a mum to a child of promise, and her miracle had arrived. She was overwhelmed with joy. She felt like Elizabeth from the Bible, pregnant with John. She had no idea what was coming. At 10 weeks, Sarah went for a scan, but the nurse could not get a heartbeat. The baby had stopped growing. Their world came crashing down. Everything collapsed. Sarah went from jubilation to devastation. It felt like the cruelest trick, she said, to be given that gift after so many years and then for it to go was beyond words. Sarah took medication to induce miscarriage. It gave her the agony of actual labor pains as her body rejected her longed-for baby. She was totally unprepared for it. That same day, Sarah's sister went into labor. And if that was not enough, on the second night of her miscarriage, a friend rang to say she had fallen pregnant. Sarah hung up the phone and screamed. "I wanted to smash everything in the house," she recalled. I'd been trying to hold it together until this point, but I lost it. Something changed in me that night that can never be mended. My sense of justice died. My idea of God as a loving father was broken. She found a Bible verse in Psalm 31 that described how she felt. "I have become like broken pottery." Round 2 of IVF yielded a similar result, a successful embryo transfer followed by a bleed a few weeks later. "The devastation hit all over again like a tsunami," she said. They did a further 3 rounds of ICSI, which did not pay off. But the process provided answers. The quality of Sarah's eggs was poor. The only way to improve her egg quality was to grow young again. There was no solution. Childlessness profoundly impacted Sarah. Infertility was lonely and isolating. She found few resources and little mental health support, even though infertility can be as stressful as having cancer. She wishes there was more help available, particularly for Christians. Sarah has an army of friends who build her up and support her, including women who understand unanswered prayer, unmet life stages, and living an unplanned life. She believes in being kind to oneself and honestly acknowledging one's raw emotions. Her personal motto is, "Work out what is the kindest thing for Sarah right now." Often the kindest thing is to avoid conversations about children. Childlessness affected Sarah's faith. She found church hard, especially when it was full of rainbows and butterflies. "I try to go to church," Sarah journaled, "but it is hard. I can't trust, believe, or pray. I have too many questions and no easy answers." Sermons on the joys of parenting were painful. Given their sensitive nature, a little advance warning would have been helpful. "People don't know how to handle unanswered prayer or brokenness," Sarah said frankly. "To sit with someone's grief and not provide answers, just comfort, is so important." One prophecy gave Sarah's child-to-be the name Daniel. Another prophecy predicted a time frame within which she would receive her child. She trusted these prophecies, but when the time frame came and went, she began to distance herself from God. She questioned herself, her sin, God's memory, God's hearing, her sugar levels, everything. In the end, she hated God. Sarah wrote a letter to God. "If you care for us, why did you allow our baby to die? Why give us hope to have it taken? Why not intervene and allow our embryos to carry on forming? I have formed a life around a promise of a child and now am bereft of that promise. I don't know what to do or who I am or who you are anymore. Do you have a redemptive purpose for this pain? Did you prevent a disabled child from being born because our genes are bad? Could you have healed this badness? What is your purpose with this suffering?" She felt she believed too readily and naively that God would simply heal them and answer their prayers. "We like things neatly parceled with a bow on top," she told me. "But what happens when the child God has promised you dies?" Her faith has shifted over time. She is now learning to trust God again, and she no longer feels angry towards him. Sarah recommends not blaming partners for infertility and not putting life on hold. She is doing things that bring her joy, like swimming and cycling. She and her husband are pursuing creative endeavors and artistic expressions of childlessness, which have helped them to heal. Looking back, Sarah said, "I wish I had known how long and hard this was going to be. I would have started treatment at a younger age. I regret not getting a second opinion. I was not properly informed." Sarah found out 1 in 3 marriages fail due to infertility, and she encourages good communication. Be each other's protectors, she says. You will be stronger as a couple if you communicate. Don't let this rob you of each other as well as parenthood. They still want to be parents, so they have applied for adoption. They know it will be another roller coaster journey, but they hope it will have a more encouraging and rewarding end. So there you have it. That's an abridged version of Sarah's story. For the full version, you'll have to read it in the book. Put your thoughts in the comments. What you thought of Sarah's story. Can you relate to her experience? Can you relate to perhaps some of her survival strategies? Put your comments in. So our lovely Emily has been reading and responding to your comments, and she has picked a random prize winner who will receive an autographed copy of this beautiful new book, Surviving Childlessness, Faith and Furbabies. There it is. And our lucky winner, drum roll. It looks like Ruth Felix is our lucky winner. Congratulations, Ruth. Just DM me your address, Ruth, or PM me, whatever's easiest for you. Send me an email and I will send that book to you. Send it on its way. Congratulations once again. So it's time to talk about where you can buy this book. The first place you can buy is direct from me on my website, which Emily is putting up for you all, but it is www.stephpenny.com.au. With any questions, you can contact me directly on my email, steph@stephpenny.com.au. Be sure to subscribe to my blog while you're on my website. I do blog every week about childlessness and other issues concerning Christians like singledom, chronic illness, and countercultural Christian living. So be sure to sign up to that. The second way to buy my book, especially if you're living in Australia or New Zealand, is through the Coorong Christian bookstore. I believe they're having problems with their freight in terms of shipping to other overseas countries. So sorry guys, hopefully at some point you'll be able to buy from Coorong. The third way you can buy my book is to get the ebook. So it's available now on Amazon, Kindle, Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, and a bunch of other ebook platforms. So the advantage of the ebook as well is the first 50 pages are free, guys, so you can actually try before you buy. It's a good way to decide if you want to spend that money on the book. So if you are nervous about giving a childless friend a book on childlessness, as I know some people might be, my suggestion to you is, look, don't be nervous about giving this book to them. This is a funny book that is also very compassionate and grounded and thoughtful. It has stories from real childless people sure to resonate with your childless friend or loved one. And buying a book for someone is a good way to say, look, I care. You know, we don't have to talk about this, but I'm aware of what's happening in your life and I definitely care about you. If you're still nervous about giving a book on childlessness to your childless loved one, tell them that you found this book on childlessness and you'd love to know what they think about it. Get their opinion and their feedback. I'd love to hear from them and from you as well. Now, guys, we are reaching near the end of this video, which means we have some time for questions. So if you have any questions about this book, Surviving Childlessness, any questions that you want to throw at me, pop them in the comments and the lovely Emily will be handing those on over to me. So, Emily, do we have any questions from our viewers? Not yet. Okay, you're making my job really easy today, guys. So we have a couple of minutes left. Do pop your questions in the comments and we will try to get to those before we wrap up. So it's time to talk to you guys about what I'm available for. I am available to speak at your church or conference. If you have a church group or another event happening, I'm available as well. And also for radio and podcast interviews. So feel free to get in touch with me directly. You can contact me through my website, stephpenny.com.au. There's a contact page form on that you can use, or just email me direct at steph at stephpenny.com.au. Emily will put that in the comments just so that I don't confuse anyone. Or just direct message me on Facebook, on Twitter, and we'll definitely chat. I would love to hear from you. I want to thank a few people now who contributed to this book, because a book is never written in isolation. There's always a team of people that make it possible. Actually, before I thank people, it looks like we've had a question come through. So I'll have a look at that. It's a question from Ruth, who says, did it take long for you to accept not having children? The short answer to that is I think acceptance is ongoing. And I think it looks different for different stages of life as well. So there was definitely an initial grieving period when I realized just how bad my health issues were and how dangerous they were going to make pregnancy, not just for me, but for any babies. When we did the number crunching and got the research together and went, wow, this is actually quite dangerous for me to try pregnancy even. It wasn't hard to accept it on that basis. Having said that, there have been times when I guess I've returned to that question and gone, are we sure? Are we still sure that it's too dangerous? Are we really sure? So there's been times when we've kind of had another think about it, or we've reviewed that decision, and we've always come to the same conclusion that, yeah, this really is too risky for us. So I think acceptance comes and goes. I don't think grief is a linear process. I don't think you kind of go through one stage after another, ticking them off as you go. I think it's more like a zigzag, or maybe more like a spider's web, where there's lots of different pathways that kind of interconnect as you go along. So I think acceptance is possible, but I think even if you accept childlessness, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy, if that makes sense. So there will still be grief. There will still be times when a reminder pops up unannounced, or you walk into a situation that kind of ambushes you in a way, and you feel that grief resurface. And I don't think that means that you haven't accepted it. I think it just means that grief is long lasting. And for some people, it might always be there to at least some degree their whole lives. And for me, I'm quite aware that could be the case for me, that grief might be without end. So good question there, Ruth. Thanks for that. Any other questions, guys? I'll check with Emily. Are there any more questions for us today, Emily?
Not that I can see.
Oh, you guys make my job super easy. Okay, so it's time for thank yous. First of all, I want to say thanks to so many people, but specifically my editor, Nola Passmore, who brought such enthusiasm to this project and good writing tips as well, and to my beta readers who helped to shape and form the final book and gave me such honest feedback that was gracious at the same time. I want to thank Book Whispers, who did the design for this book. So they designed that cover, you can see there, and also did the internal layout for the book, and that's Book Whispers. My thanks to Emily, of course, for assisting me with these online launches. My big thanks to the Amiga Christian Writers Group, and particularly to my Sydney chapter, who have supported my writing journey for quite a number of years now. Thanks so much to the 14 childless people who bravely put their hands up and volunteered their time and their stories to be included in this book. Thanks to my long-suffering husband and Furbaby, who put up with me endlessly talking about this book. And finally, but by no means least, thanks to God, in whom I live and move and have my being. So if there's no other questions, guys, then that is it for today. Thank you so much once again for coming and supporting this launch of Surviving Childlessness. Remember to like and heart my video so that more childless people will see it, and hopefully they'll get this book and receive those messages of hope that are in this book, those who really need it most. So remember, guys, you are not alone. There are people all around the world going through similar experiences of grief, but also of transformation through their childlessness journeys. So I pray for you guys that God will bless your journey, be it your own journey of childlessness or that of someone you know and love. Take care for today, guys, and bye from Sydney, Australia. What do we reckon? Is it still sideways?
Yeah.
Well, what if... Here we go. Apparently I'm still sideways.